Playtime with Percy, not to be confused with Poppy Playtime, is a FNAF fan game that was recently released on August 4th, 2023. It was mainly quiet throughout most of its development, however the game started picking up steam when it was released. Mainly due to the developers sending out early versions to YouTubers, and as you can see here, yeah, that worked out really well. Now I'm a bit late to the party, but I still want to check out this game for myself, and boy do I wish I checked this game out when it initially launched. So I'm going to go ahead and review all this game's aspects, and also some side mentions if it's necessary. Also, because this is a newly released FNAF fan game, I'm going to put a spoiler warning on this video, so please proceed with caution. The game begins with, well, me first logging into my Games World account so I can get those sweet trophies. Then we press the new game button and the game starts with a cutscene, starring Nick, who looks like Minecraft Steve, and his boss. The cutscene gives us the Nick's boss calling Nick, who was previously laid off. If you can watch over the building he was previously fired from, called Percy's Playhouse. Nick denies at first, but then his boss offers $250, and he accepts from there. Now, quickly want to talk about the graphical style of this game. It is very similar to something like the Wallen Files, which by itself is its own great FNAF-inspired series. I may have to do a video on it someday. It's fully 2D and hand-drawn, unlike most games where they usually make 3D graphics in Blender, and render from there. Hey, that rhymed. Apart from certain animatronics on Night 6, which I will get into later. Now, the gameplay itself is slightly different from normal FNAF fan games. When I think of FNAF, I think of this. Sitting from 12 to 6 AM in a smelly office and just having to lure animatronics away from your office. Well, Playtime with Percy flips this idea on its head, while also keeping the base outline the same. Instead of having to sit for 6 hours straight, you now have to complete a certain amount of tasks, and then you get to leave. The idea is that you have this machine called a Play Percy, which is basically just a Tamagotchi. If you don't know what those are, well, number one, you're probably too young to be watching this, but they are basically a pet simulator. You have to take care of your pets by playing minigames, and when its happiness meter is full, that's when the night ends. Depending on the time you get in, you get extra happiness on the next night. Which I didn't, because I'm terrible at this game. Now, this Tamagotchi style mechanic is cool, but the idea of other animatronics or other characters attacking you is still present. This game has a lot of mechanics to the point where it gets somewhat overwhelming in the later nights. But I'd argue it's more of a tough learning curve instead of just being straight up unfair. These mechanics include leaving the cameras up or down, depending on the character that's in events, keeping the door locked when Lanolin the sheep from Sonic IDW breaks in, and this color mechanic which requires you to focus on the eyes of this character and press the color before he gets to the other side. There's also the small Percy plush, which I swear to God was born from the darkest pits of hell. However, that's not all the mechanics, because there is an overtime minigame at the end of each night. The first night consists of you having to sell a bunch of unused animatronics, however, you have to hide under the desk from Charlie Cat occasionally. The second night is this arcade game where you have to occasionally look behind you and flash the animatronic behind you. The third night is the same where you have to restore power by playing a bunch of minigames, and occasionally you have to look behind you and shine your flashlights. There's also a cutscene here where we basically update our boss on the fact that we totally haven't almost died, and that there's an announcement for the Panel Percy which is being recalled due to it harming consumers. The fourth night has this thing where we gotta repair this animatronic by playing minigames, and occasionally you have to click on the Percy Poodle so he doesn't kill us. The fifth night has this repair minigame which requires us to repair the Percy animatronic, and we have to use the spare battery in our watch to repair it. And that was the entire game. Safe to say, this is a very short but sweet experience. Well, that's not quite it for this game. There was one final boss. Remember that battery from the Pal Percy we put in the actual Percy earlier? Yeah, apparently that thing sort of supercharged Percy is now way more powerful than they were before. That can't be good. So now we've ended up in a storage closet and using an early model of the Pal Percy to try and beat this boss. The Tamagotchi idea is the same, but you have to get the 25 happiness 5 times to beat this game. Sounds easy, right? Not so much. This is straight up one of the hardest nights I think I've played in any FNAF fan game, or just FNAF in general. But like I mentioned earlier, it's very skill-based. This game does do a very good job at making it feel like it's your fault as a player, instead of you wanting to blame the developers. There are a few reused mechanics, but there are a few new ones. You can drag these carts to knock Percy away. There's also this mechanic where Percy will occasionally appear on the cameras, and you'll need to look at his Pal Percy and find the item that is shown on it in the camera. Occasionally Percy will appear on these TVs, and you need to turn them off by clicking on it to get rid of them. This technically doesn't kill you, but it does prevent you from using the Pal Percy, so it's best to do it. Your visual will become pixelated every now and then, and you will have to find an animatronic staring at you in one of the cameras. So not only does it make your game become one of those Japanese films, it also will mess with your controls. One last new mechanic, which is another Pal Percy mechanic. Occasionally, Pal Percy will ask you to memorize a cup in which a ball is placed in, and they get shuffled. It's as easy as making sure you pick the right cup. Also, I swear to God, this thing gives me Omega Flowey vibes.
Your best pal, and we'll be together forever.
After you get past the first 5 phases, you just need to survive for the next 90 seconds as the entire facility powers down. One last thing I should mention is that this area is timed unlike the rest of the game, and if you die at any point, it respawns at where you died, sort of like a checkpoint. The game has an end cutscene showing Percy, which looks very much destroyed, trying to force Nick to be his friend through the power of violence. However, Miles Cyrus ends up killing Percy, and Nick seems a bit upset that no one is believing him. All power Percys were destroyed a while ago, but apparently Nick just had one, and thank God it didn't try to do something like kill him. Regards to role, however, that's not the end of the game, since we have probably the most feature-filled extras I've ever seen. And there's also a custom hour mode, which is basically just custom nights. And that is all I have for Playtime with Percy. It's definitely a game that's in my top 10 in terms of FNAF fan games. A lot of them do eventually want to see more games in this style. Granted, I don't want everyone to use the Tamagotchi mechanic, but I want to see more of those complete tasks to survive the night games. Also, the art style is great, and the games themselves felt like a breath of fresh air. And that is all I have for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.